You want to tell them how we came about this?
So I'm glad it's an intimate setting because sometimes it's hard to explain to people when you've received a movement in your spirit to do something and to be authentic about what that means and quite frankly to have the faith and the courage to actually walk it out. So early one morning, about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, for us as believers, I received a download from the Holy Spirit. That's the only way I can explain it. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever had an encounter just in your spirit, you feel so compelled that you have to do something. So I got broken down. It was revealed to me that there were a lot of relationships that I needed to heal and forgive. And now being in our 3rd marriage, having 7 children between the 2 of us, there were a lot of dynamics going on.
That was not the plan.
Not the plan. But even those dynamics, I want to make sure I do this right. Even in those dynamics, we knew that we had to make a first step toward healing for ourselves, and then that would impact the rest of our families. So this is our 3rd marriage each. I'm not sure about you all, if you've been married and divorced, you know that there's a lot that comes with you when you go through that process. We met at work, in Atlanta, and just divinely put together at the same table with 2,000 people in the same room, and here I meet my soulmate. Now, I wasn't looking. I was actually done with y'all for a minute, right?
I was kind of looking. Not really hard.
But one thing that did happen is that as we started to work together, I was like, hey, this is just a nice guy. Because sometimes
we need to do a little detail on the work together part. I was diversity director at the U.S. Olympic Committee. And having gone to Atlanta, I was new in the industry, the diversity field or space, I think they called it then. And they sat me at her table, her company, sponsored a table. They sat me there. It was not a plan. And when she walked in and saw me sitting there amongst her colleagues that she actually invited, a look came over her face like, what are you doing here? Because she didn't recognize me. Fortunately, I knew some of the people at the table, so they kind of told her, yeah, he's okay. And it was at that moment that I knew that I needed to be connected. Yeah. I'll just call it connected.
And I think I had too many barriers up. Just real talk. I had too much stuff going on that I couldn't see. I couldn't see him. So I was just trying to figure out, because I put him through a lens because of my past stuff. I had put him through a lens of what is he on? What does he want? What's this all about? Does anyone know anything about that? Okay, because that's what we do. That's what becomes sometimes our first line of defense if we are dealing with our own stuff. So once we kind of fast forward about 6 or 7 months and we were working together, I was like, wow, this is a really nice guy.
Well, tell them the truth. I had to hire a company just to get her into, we were living on 2 separate parts of the country and then Colorado, Chicago, and we met in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I knew the only way I was going to see her again was to hire her. And I needed her services though, don't get it confused. And actually she did some really great work for us, and I knew she would.
So it kind of, as we were going through this sort of 6 or 7 month connection, I realized that, there's something about him I actually like, and he's gonna put money in my pocket. This might be a good thing. But more than that, we were connected in our spirit. And I think that's when I finally let my shell down, when I finally released some of my past hurts, not knowing this methodology, not knowing this practice, but knowing that I saw something on the trajectory that I wanted. But the only way I could get there was by releasing some of the stuff that I was bringing with me. So, but lo and behold, I had no idea that we would end up doing this work together and actually having it be our life's work. So,
well, let me jump in real quick. Some of you may understand what I'm about to tell you. When at the moment that I met her, and I'm just taking for granted that each of you have connected with someone before, whether it's a life mate, a spouse, a partner, or something like that. It's You just kind of have this knowing, and you see something in them. I saw her gifts. I saw her gifts before she saw them. And we began having that conversation because I was in a long line of potential suitors who were trying to get her attention.
Just keep it going, keep it moving.
Okay. It took a year, maybe more than that, before I was actually able to get around to a conversation about a future between the two of us. We each had issues we needed to deal with. But once I finally got there, and it was unlikely at best, I told her that I saw her gifts. And at that moment, she was confused. And I expected that. I expected that because when someone that you know, maybe even someone you don't know, tells you you're special, and then I see something in you, you naturally have to take that with a grain of salt and be very careful because there are so many people out here trying to take advantage of you, women in particular.
Right, absolutely. So, given our focus for today, can you hear me okay? Okay, so given our focus for today, we wanted to be able to just share with you a real practical approach to healing and forgiveness. Forgiveness was the source of our ability to release the hurt from our past, but forgiveness isn't automatic, right? It's just not. And can you imagine being told, teach forgiveness? And I'm like, really, dude? Like,
I'm feeling some experience in the room.
You know, it's like, wow, for real? So how do you take this huge concept of forgiveness and then break it down and compartmentalize it where it becomes something that's daily, that you live? So this is what we want to be able to share with you, and at best be able to, over this next 80 minutes or so, begin the process. We don't want you to just walk out of here and let this be another conversation. Let this be the beginning of, this is 2018. You know, for real. Let's be done with it. You know, I turned 50 last year. I got real about there were more years behind me than there are in front of me. And turning the corner now at 51, it's even clearer to me that that youth is wasted on the young. But that I could probably save some of my younger counterparts 20 or 30 years of just pain and confusion and bitterness and anger if we could really learn how to apply this. Okay? So let's get started. I just want to kind of set the tone with this video.
Today's intention is to ensure that when you leave here today, you were divinely appointed to be here. We have been praying for you. I'll just say it like that. So we know that everybody that is here today is supposed to be here to hear this message. And we want to ensure that when you walk out, you're equipped with the Just Breathe practice, some tools that you'll be able to take, because what we forget, I think, about forgiveness is that it's not a gift that we give someone else. It's the gift we give ourselves. Like the video highlighted, there's nothing we can do about what's already happened. But what we can do is reposition ourselves to move forward in a way that will allow us to be at our very best and to stay that way as long as we're willing to do the work. Why is forgiveness so hard? We're going to talk about that, and I think you're going to be surprised at what you find. We're going to talk about what forgiveness is actually and what it isn't. Because in the short time that we've been doing this work, we've discovered that there's a lot of confusion about exactly what it is, how it fits into our lives on a daily basis, and what benefit it provides for us on an ongoing basis, whether it's a small irritation at work or deep trauma from abuse. In my case, it was military combat. I was in the Army for 20 years. And that wasn't the plan. I intended to go get the college money and just start a life. But I discovered there were some important things happening in the world. And during that time, I received a great deal of trauma that this forgiveness work really helped me to deal with. Now, this picture, I was telling my wife on our way over here when we were developing this presentation for you. This picture was me only a few years ago. I had landed what was the best career in my life up until that point. Premier diversity company doing global sales. I was making a ton of money, and a health issue made it impossible for me to continue the rigors of travel and all of the things that that job was providing until one day I just had to leave. And I remember the moment that I felt like this man looked. And of course, then you have to go home and tell everybody, you know, that $100,000, $200,000 job I no longer have. And with a home full of 7 children, that is just not news you want to take to your family.
Nor is it news you want to hear, right? But I think there's no coincidence why all these things have happened in our lives, and we're just really authentic and transparent about it because we know it's a culmination of why we're here now. So we wanted to ask, though, how do you manage hurt? You know, this is a nice, intimate group. I mean, just sometimes we can learn so much from each other. You know, how do you go about managing hurt? You know, when you get an offense, when you get a hit, what do?
Assertively speak out against it.
You assertively speak out against it, okay?
Especially if it's something where there's been a crime that's committed. Speak up.
Right.
And make sure that that's documented. Being assertive rather than passive.
You're assertive rather than passive, gotcha.
And also as well too on a bigger level when it comes to trauma, which they totally disavow, but it works for me. I detach from it.
Detach. Okay.
And I also suppress it. Because if I can't control my anger or control the situation by controlling my emotions, it's no way that I'm going to survive it.
That's right.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I missed unfortunately, despite trying to get here and get here. And
It's okay. You're here right on time.
It's okay.
And I missed the video and what have you, but I've heard this message for a long time, and I know what the scripture says biblically, but I am totally against forgiveness against crimes against humanity, because this country, this world does not prosecute those crimes, so there's no justice whatsoever.
And we'll talk
Not
about
to
forgiveness.
Justice,
Right.
as opposed to forgiveness. But may I also say
Sure.
this to you? There's a lot of mismanagement and what's the word I'm looking for? About even scriptural forgiveness. The Bible says you have no authority for forgiveness unless you acknowledge you've done something wrong, have godly sorrow for it, and apologize, as well as repent from it, change your mind and your actions. So everyone does not qualify for forgiveness spiritually, and also that even is with God. The same thing for God and mankind. You can't get forgiveness from God unless you do the above steps. The same thing from when you offend someone
Absolutely.
else. If there's a qualifier, and everybody wants the forgiveness, but no one wants to do the real work, the qualifications for forgiveness. And that's out of order. So they just tell the victim, oh, just forgive them no matter what they do, and let them continue to do it over and over again. But they don't tell them the steps for them qualifying for getting forgiveness.
Gotcha. So let's take, because you had a lot there that we can unpack, and we'll be addressing a lot of that, okay?
That's good stuff.
And
Thank
it is
you.
good,
Thank
thank
you.
you, because it's real. You know, because when you are hurt, I mean, you want to be justified in what you're hurt, right? And if you're absolutely, I mean, we deal with people who have children who have been killed. You know, we have people who have dealt with trauma and post-traumatic stress. You know, so there's a lot of stuff to unpack this idea of forgiveness. And scripturally, God does say, there's the one thing, there's two things that God can't do. If you blaspheme the Holy Spirit and if you don't forgive, it's hard for him to forgive you. He cannot do it. So, but not everybody's a believer, and I get that, and I respect that. But it is important that forgiveness that you understand is not for the other person, it's for you. So we'll get to that. How do you manage hurt? A couple more people. What do you typically
There
do?
were a few more hands. Yes,
Withdrawal?
withdrawal.
Sure, absolutely.
For safety reasons.
Yeah.
Sure. Or if you're in danger, you should withdraw.
Withdrawal, absolutely.
Yes.
I think I'm here because I haven't managed my hurt the best way in the past, and
Okay.
so I think I internalized a lot and kind of like had the pain within me still, and then after it just
You have the pain within you still?
and then after it gets a little bit unbearable, and I probably say things out of
Sure.
Say things that are out of character because
That's
it becomes
not
unbearable.
unusual.
Yeah.
That's not unusual.
Absolutely. I'm working with this technology lady, so let me, I'm going to go around here, John. I'm going to put it up.
I isolate because people are.
Now, has anyone had the challenge that I had? My forgiveness challenge wasn't with other people. I needed to forgive myself. Has anybody experienced that? There are some things that happen in life that require or that position you to do things that you would never do otherwise. So that upon doing them, you realize that you've done more damage to yourself. And then there's the residual guilt and everything that goes along with it. Now, I'm happy to tell you that that can be dealt with as well.
So we wanted to just take a quick minute. I'm hoping that everyone has their smartphones and that you're connected on the McCormick Wi-Fi. You can do that? We're
We
going
have a
to,
very short survey.
yeah. If you go to learningforgiveness.com, we have a algorithm on this survey that places you on, it's not anything real deep, but it does help to begin this examination of where are you on what we call a forgiveness meter. You know, this is self-examination, and it's just about, if you'd like to participate, it's just about 14 questions. It'll take you about 5 to 7 minutes. Hop on, and we're going to turn some music on, and just take a minute. We'd like to be able to discuss, those who'd like to share, the results that they get. Again, this is not super duper science, but we were able to begin to collect a certain sample size of feedback from people and constructed this survey so that people can just use this time to say, I know that I have this desire to, because there's different levels on this meter. Some people have fully resolved living in wholeness, all the way down to you probably still need some work to do, and somewhere in the middle based on what you had just said. I think we all have our degrees of how we forgive and what we are willing to forgive. So let's just try this first, because I think you brought up some good points here in the front. Let's figure out what forgiveness isn't. If you remember the video, the young man actually showed him all the things that hurt him, right? And how many times do we say, I'm gonna forgive, but I ain't gonna forget what you did? Now, you could argue that that's not true forgiveness. It doesn't mean that you have to forget. okay? It just means that you've put that situation into a place that you've compartmentalized it where it does not become emotionally overwhelming, where you're able to examine it through a lens that allows you to almost separate yourself from it so that you don't be consumed by it. So it's not forgetting, because you will remember. How can you forget, right? I think you're setting yourself up if you think that you're just going to press it down for so long where you think you're going to forget it, because it will bubble back up. It will. It's not avoidance. You know, as long as I don't see her, we good. No, that doesn't work either, because once you actually come into encounter with that person, you don't know how volatile something could be. It's not necessarily even reconciliation. There's some people who have hurt me deeply. But I'm not going to go hang out with them. They're not going to be in my circle. They're not going to be people that I spend time with, but I have no resentment toward them. You know, I believe that sometimes people give the best that they can, and when they don't, they just didn't want to. And so, but we hold them accountable for how they didn't show up for us. When sometimes, you know, we have to kind of put people into a place, because oftentimes they're giving what they can give. Everyone is bringing their luggage, their baggage to the table. And the ability to examine that and know how it's going to impact you is very, very critical. And we'll go in a little bit more. Condoning. Just because you don't deal with it, or you avoid it, or you go in a different way, or you withdraw, or you just say, you know what, okay, I'm just going to give you a pass, I'm going to condone this. That's not forgiveness either, because if the situation comes back up, it stirs up inside of you, doesn't it? It still does. It's still there. Does anyone have an example of someone that they thought they had forgiven, and when they saw them, they realized, wait a minute, there's still something there? Does anyone have an example of that? Go ahead. I wish we had another mic. They were supposed to bring mics. Maybe we grab that one.
Let me
Let's
see if
bring
that-
let's bring it up a little
that'll
further, because I want
cord
everyone to be able to hear you.
It's on a cord, though.
Is it taped down? Okay.
But it's a pretty long
We're just going
cord.
to
I
have to
don't know.
project then. No, I don't want people to have to do that. We might be able to move the cord a little bit.
Because we want to hear these.
Does it work?
Yeah, but let's see how far it'll get us. No.
Okay.
You'll have to project. Unless you want to come back here.
But then I have to turn around.
Okay,
Yeah.
no worries.
Go ahead.
It's my ex really.
Your ex.
Yeah, it's like we talk things out, and I'm like, all right, I feel good about this. But then sometimes when you meet up with someone, they'll still. You know, even if it doesn't plague me through my day to day, it's like, wait, you're still kind of this person doing similar things, so it's going to remind me. And it works as a trigger, but then it also works as, wait a minute, why is this really bothering me?
Exactly. Exactly. Because, I mean, the word even says, you know, how many times are we supposed to forgive somebody? You know, 70 times 7, right? This isn't a mathematic equation. Right? But think about what that means. What does that actually mean? The way that we've interpreted that in sort of our Holy Spirit interpretation is we just have to always be in a posture of forgiveness.
Because
You know.
offenses will come.
They're going to come. They're going to
Will
come
be
often.
offended, will be hurt in this life.
And so imagine if you allowed your emotions to swing and sway every single time something hit you, and you didn't have the emotional intelligence and control to really examine what was going on, okay? So when this Holy Spirit download came to teach forgiveness, I said, Lord, how do you do this? This is so big. And he says, you know what? Forgiveness is a practice. It's not automatic. It's a practice like yoga. He said, just breathe. And so you know how yoga is. It's this movement and breathing together, you know, to help you to release stress, to be centered. But it was the word breathe, which really, I'm going to advance it up. It was the word breathe that really did it for me. Hold on, I'm going to advance this real quick. Oh, good. Thank you for bringing it over. And so what it helped us to do is to figure out what forgiveness is. Because we know what it's not, but what is it? How would you actually define it? I mean, for real. Yeah.
Forgiveness is giving up on hope for the past.
All hope of a what?
For a better past.
Oh, all hope for a better past.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
like
one.
that.
I like that.
We will quote you. Make sure we get your name on that, because I think we're going to use that.
Yeah.
Want to make sure you get credit.
How would you define forgiveness?
Well, I think that I would feel like I have forgiven someone if, when I think about them, I no longer get mad.
You no longer
at
get
the
mad.
attorney.
Yeah. When you think about them,
No, that's how I'll know I've let it go.
Nice.
When I can think about them, no negative hard emotions.
stirs up in you, right? Okay. Anyone else? How would you define forgiveness? Okay. It's a choice.
It doesn't happen accidentally, in other words. It is a deliberate act on your part where you decide that you will begin the process of releasing that person, that institution, those people for the hurt that they inflicted upon you. Forgiveness is for you. It's not for anyone else. It's not for the people, the institutions that hurt you. It's not for the people in charge or anyone else. It's for you. And if you decide to carry it,
That's right.
it will impact your life in a negative way, and I don't know many people who want that. You can forgive and not be passive. You can forgive and not be inactive. You can forgive and still take steps to right the wrongs, just so we're clear.
Yeah. It's the spirit behind it. So, evidence that you haven't forgiven. You're replaying the video of the hurt.
Constantly.
Let's be real. Now we can talk, oh yeah, I've forgiven her, but let me just tell you what happened. Right? You're repeating it, you're reliving it, as if the hurt and the pain just hit you yesterday. But in your mind, you think you're intellectualizing it, but you're not. You're replaying the video of the hurt.
And it always manifests in your emotions. There's no way that you can hold on to unforgiveness and it not show up
Yeah.
in a negative way in your life.
That's right. You're still angry when you come in contact with a person. You know, just like you were saying, you know, you thought that it's not part of your daily sort of thought process, but when you see them, you range from anywhere from anger again to they just make me feel some kind of way.
Yeah.
You know? So even that make me feel some kind of way is not forgiveness either. There's no gradations of this. It's either that you're fully whole, fully at peace, or you're still having something that you have to resolve or examine. Okay?
Your thoughts about the people, person, institution are bitter thoughts. Now, we know that there are things in our society that must change.
That's right.
And I think the most effective way to go about that is when you are whole, you tend to be more effective in your work. And I knew that when we started this, that there would be no way we could share anything about forgiveness if we had unforgiveness in our lives. And that's why they call it a practice, because it's something you have to look back on each day or as often as needed to ensure that you are clear.
And then lastly, negative words dominate the conversation about them. And when you have reference to them, when you're interacting with them, when you're thinking about them, examine your words, examine your thoughts. And because this is all the internal work, right? This is the inside out stuff. This is the stuff that no one really, these are the deep crevices and thoughts of how you really feel about someone. And if you know that those thoughts and words are bitter and negative, you really haven't released it yet. As much as you've gone through maintaining sort of a persona when you interact with them. You know, I joke around, Joyce Meyer says this great thing. She says, you know somebody at church you love, I love you with the love of the Lord. But you're thinking already about something else about them, for real. The negative thoughts and the words are bitter and continue to be
And
negative.
that's not to be confused with constructive
Yeah.
criticism. Because some people, institutions, and things need constructive criticism when the time is right. Because that's a very strategic process. Now, if you find that you're criticizing with the intention of hurting them, then you know that your motives are off a little bit and that perhaps you need to heal.
Right. So, you know, we can all be super spiritual, and it means nothing if in our actions, our emotions, and the movement, we are still operating in a bitter way. So think about it. When you're hit with an offense, your soul is hit. It's your mind, your will, your emotions, right? Because that's the first thing that's sort of out there. What are you going to allow to rule you? I think there has to be a decision at some point. Do you say, is my spirit woman, spirit man going to ride over my soul, emotions, and feelings? And then as a result, I act out on that? Or am I going to pause for a minute, take the examination and the time? Because real hurt is real. It doesn't mean that you can automatically do this.
Yes.
But the process you take to get yourself through this alignment of spirit, soul, and body is critical. Now, I have to share with you, did you have a question?
Yeah, I think that there's some situations where forgiveness does not apply.
Okay.
From being seriously abused from infancy up to adulthood, to being drugged, raped, and tortured.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I believe to what happened to our people on the Middle Passage,
That's it.
which far outweighs the Jews' 7 million.
Holocaust,
From 50 to 100 million. I don't believe that forgiveness applies in every situation. There are situations where forgiveness is not a reality. The reality becomes, how do I care for myself? How do I love myself again? And the other, if it's another person, it's not an issue of forgiving them as much as taking care of myself in such a way that I can live a little better again.
So that is why forgiveness is for you. See, there's a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. You don't have to reconcile with those abusers. You don't have to reconcile with those people who beat you. We don't have to reconcile with the slave owners who took us from our homeland through the Middle Passage on slavery boats and landed us here and disenfranchised our families.
Nor will we ever forget.
Nor will we ever forget it.
Nor will we ever forget it.
That's like reconciliation. That's like thinking, oh, this is, kumbaya, everything is okay again. No, there's some bad people in the world. There's some ugly, bitter people in the world.
That was your point.
Yeah, no.
There's a lot of pain.
I'm being really honest with you. This is from a space of personal love, fortitude, self-care, the ability to release those thoughts. Because guess what? If you keep that going, the abuse, molestation, if you keep that going in your own mind, it becomes a part of your daily mentality, you will never progress and move fully into the purpose that God has laid out for you, or that you have laid out for you. There's always going to be something there anchoring you in the bitterness. So it's not about reconciling with those folks. We've dealt with fathers who were trying to reconcile with daughters that they've molested for years. She's not ready to have a relationship. She's not going to reconcile that. That may never happen. But guess what? If she comes in contact with another man and brings the thoughts of that molestation into her marriage and relationship, then she has generational curses of hatred, bitterness, and this self-protectionness that's not about opening up her heart to allow her to love fully. That is the differentiation.
Forgiveness is self-love.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't keep you anchored to past events.
Go ahead.
I had a question. So when I think about forgiveness, I think about Dylan Roof when he went into the church and shot up all those people.
Absolutely.
And what becomes confusing about forgiveness is because then the people got on TV, his family, their family members are saying, "I forgive you," And so that's what for me, it makes forgiveness kind of difficult. I get the self-love, but maybe I see forgiveness as letting go. But, you know, but we throw that forgiveness term around a lot, and it just gets confused.
Yeah, we're being real specific around how we're defining this, okay?
We're not talking about justifying bad behavior.
Crimes.
Yeah, you kind of, we were just kind of went through what forgiveness wasn't. It's not condoning anything. It's not seeking justice. You know what I mean? This is not that. This is elemental to your self-care, to the relationships that you have with your family, in your business relationships. People are bringing on all of the hurt, pain, confusion, dysfunction into every single relationship because of a hurt. I'm not going to give the person who hurt me any more power. Why would I allow them to continue to do that? I'm just not going to.
And let's be clear,
Yeah.
it's not that, and you can forgive them and still take decisive action against them.
Absolutely.
You can be healed. You're in a better position to do it now because you've taken the steps, because you love yourself enough not to be anchored to that pain, so that you're clear to take more decisive action going forward.
She had a question right here in the right.
I was gonna say, I think, I'm actually struggling with this. I think we're confusing reconciliation
Yep.
and forgiveness.
We really are.
So that's why the seminar is actually kind of great because it's separating the two. I agree with you. I'm never going to forgive Dylan Roof. I'm never going to forgive all of the atrocities that have happened to our people over the last several centuries. But I cannot carry that anger and that bitterness throughout the rest of my life because it's making me an angry and bitter person, and that's not what I want for my little girl. That's not what I want for her children and her children and her children. And so when we take control of the forgiveness and say, you know what, I forgive you. I'm not going to forget.
Right.
I do forgive you because I need to let this go. We are empowering the people behind us
That's right.
to let it go as well so that they can move on and give themselves the self-love that they need in order to progress.
And be more effective in ensuring that it doesn't happen again.
You know, John, for me, the conflict is between forgiveness and reconciliation, because forgiveness only takes me.
Right.
Reconciliation.
Just for you.
And that person needs to be honest for them to be.
They have to be a willing participant, absolutely.
Right. Which may never
But
happen.
where I get is forgiveness and justice.
Yes.
It's very hard
Yeah.
for me to forgive when there's been
No
an injustice
justice.
that has never been
That's right.
addressed.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
And I think that's where.
Because we're always the
the
onus
racial
to
thing
forgive, but
is,
where's the
like,
justice
it's
piece?
never
No.
been
Where's the,
justice.
Absolutely.
That was not-
where?
You're better positioned to fight for justice when you're whole.
But I
And
gotta
that's what
get
we're trying to
whole.
show.
You gotta get whole in a context where it says, I'm gonna get whole even if there is no justice.
That's right.
that's
And I
exactly
don't
right.
want-
And you must be whole, even if there's no justice.
I have a problem with that because see, my thing is this, all the onus is on forgiveness, but there's no onus on justice. There's no
But
onus
you can't
on
control
being
anyone else,
I
right?
recognize that, but what I'm
Yeah.
sharing with you is
Mhm.
that all the onus is put on the victim to forgive. There's no onus to take the responsibility of the sociopath to own up to their crimes against
Sure.
humanity. There is no onus for justice. There is no onus for all of those things. It's only for the victim to forgive, and that's where I have a problem with because it's not consistent. There is all the onus and the work put on the victim as usual, but there's no onus on society or the sociopath, and that's out of order. But then also God tells you you're not getting any forgiveness till you acknowledge what you've done, be godly sorrow, and repent from it. And that's the same thing for every individual. They don't have a right to forgiveness unless they've done those steps, and that not being preached correctly is out of order. But the last thing I want to share with you is I waited a long time. I was passed up. I wanted to say this also as well too. In the truth, we mentioned Nelson Mandela, and I was made last, so I'm going to take my time and speak. They had the Truth and Reconciliation.
Reconciliation councils.
Yes, I
Absolutely.
was going to say councils. Yes, I
Mhm.
couldn't remember that rest of that long
Sure.
term.
No, that's okay.
And you know what it did? It let the sociopaths get away with the crimes against humanity. The people never got any justice, and that's why South Africa is going to explode in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because the atrocities and the genocide of our people is globally, and it's still going on. It's never stopped. The biggest Holocaust that there is, that the UN has acknowledged that we are Holocaust people and owe reparations. In Cobra, Chicago, and we charge genocide.org.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing
All
that.
right, now we're going to reiterate the fact that forgiveness is only for you.
That's right.
That person may never deserve it, just like we didn't.
Yep.
Right?
That person cannot ever earn it, nor can we. It is a gift freely given
Right.
and freely received. You may never be able to face the person or the institution that hurt you or our people. But what you can do is heal. And that's why whatever onus goes on the victim is to ensure that they heal so that they don't remain broken by what's happened in the past. This is about being free from the past and then being active toward ensuring that whatever hurt you doesn't happen again. And you're better positioned for
So
that
imagine-
when you're whole.
So-
Only for you.
Yeah, because the wholeness, if you don't have it, you actually are re-victimized again.
That's why we hear you repeating the same things over and over each time you speak.
Right, but I'm gonna share this with you. I'm hearing everything, like she was saying, the compartmentalizing. These issues are problematic, but then also how they put the different responsibilities on victims is totally out of order, and that's what the problem. I have a personal problem with, because we always put the responsibility on the victim. We never put
Sure.
the responsibility on the person who took the criminal action. There needs to be equity in that and justice in that on the sociopath, but also I forgot to mention this as well too. Number one, in the white community, the preachers need to be preaching against delusional white supremacy violence. And they also need to make sure they get deliverance from it. But like I also said, the sociopath needs to be treated, all of them, but specifically we're talking about that one as well too, that type of sociopathism, delusional white supremacy. But then also as well too, in the church, the African American church, there needs to be mass deliverance from slavery spirits. We all need deliverance when it comes to slavery and those different aspects. And all of this work is not being done by the psychologicals, not by the church. All this work is undone, and that's why you see what's going on continuing.
So what I'm hearing is that we have two approaches here, because there's a systemic issue and then there's individual contributions, right? And our focus for today, absolutely, is that what can we do until we mobilize and galvanize at a systemic level, right? Then the justice part of the conversation that she was talking about, that is where that lane will resolve its issues. The bitterness piece, the wholeness piece, the ability to even fight the injustice has to start with you. Because otherwise, guess what? If you become part of a systemic issue or trying to go to somebody with a systemic issue with anger, bitterness, resentment, and all of that is rolled up into how you have been treated, how far are you going to get?
Not far. You'll just be an angry voice in the crowd.
You become the very thing that you're trying to fight. So what I'm saying is you have to fight, but it's how you fight.
The thing is getting there.
You have to be healed
And it's getting there.
and whole to be most effective. Yes.
This is a process. It takes a lifetime.
Absolutely, that's why it's a practice.
You don't wait till you're whole in order to be mobilized, to be assertive and to speak out, and also to be
I'm just saying, but the
proactive
closer,
about justice.
but the closer you are to wholeness,
It's
the
got to be a
more
priority.
effective that you can
It's
be.
gotta- Yes, ma'am.
All this should be equitably dealt with, not out of order.
When she said something about us having to fight, it kind of reminded me of the Bible, how it says don't fight evil with evil, but it didn't say don't fight at all. It didn't
Right.
say don't fight at all.
We're going to fight.
Yeah.
But we're going to fight from a position of wholeness. Yes.
An important word came up, the issue of equity. And I'm really speaking of this personally because I try to detach from institutional, systemic types of issues.
That's right.
Because going back to the Mandela quote about the anger and the poison, anger is harmful, but righteous anger is still harmful. I like to stay away from that, but I feel like we're hardwired people are fair, but things are not always fair. So when we look interpersonally, people who harm us, it's hard to forgive them because it's like, well, what they did to me is going to happen to them. When are they going to get theirs? When are they going to get theirs?
We're looking for the revenge.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So we're looking at, hey, why did it bother me so much? What long-time issues did this trigger that happened before I even met this person, before they came into my life? And what did I learn? And that's how I'm able to get the forgiveness thing going. What did I learn here? But it is hard to forgive when you're expecting a shoe
Yes.
job from somebody else because of what happened.
That's right.
And in our beginning, that's because we are all on different journeys.
That's right.
Everyone is experiencing just what they need to experience, even if it's terrible.
Right.
That's right.
And that's why we're only dealing with one issue today.
Preordination is so.
One issue today, forgiveness. Now we're going to actually start to share
What this
what
is.
we came to share, the Just Breathe practice. Because for those who want to forgive, this tool will empower you to do it. Step one, begin in the Spirit, is my favorite because this was the one that positioned me to deal with my issues as it related to armed conflict and post-traumatic stress and all of the things that came as a result of military service. And it comes in the quiet of your spirit. If you are ever able, how many of you know that over a 24-hour period, you are rarely still? And you are rarely
That's right.
quiet. And your circumstances are rarely at peace. This environment has to be deliberate. You have to isolate yourself, if only for a few moments a day, just to think, to pray, to enjoy some solitude. And those are the times when you can actually be attentive to what happens in your mind and in your heart and in your spirit. If you're ever alone with yourself, those are the times that you begin to understand yourself and are best able to minister to yourself. And we do that with something we call the STOP tool, and we'll get to that.
Yeah. And we'll go through each of these in a little bit more detail, but I just really want to do that begin in the Spirit because I could go from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds.
Anchor helps me. It ain't just my day.
And then
anger-
I
anger is
realized
not bad.
it's not bad.
When,
It's how
when
I manage it.
appropriated correctly.
But I realized that the anger that I was showing, I was also perpetuating it for my daughters and sons. That they were seeing that the way that I was managing my stress, that's the way that you did it. And I didn't want to impart that on them because I wanted them to be in a position to be able to have them to manage their crazy better. In the workplace, anger really is difficult to manage. Because I tell you, and it was just, I know it's just my deliverance from this, I met the high-strung white woman every single place I went.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I met the high-strung white woman every place I went.
Oh, I got you.
And I'm just like, why do I meet her all the time?
She's stalking you.
She's stalking me, right? She's insecure, she's bitter, she was conniving, she's trying to go around me. I mean, I'm just being honest. I mean, that's just, but I realized it wasn't about her. It was about my ability to meet someone where they were, to be able to determine, God, I can actually still be successful even in the midst of somebody throwing daggers at me. Okay. But I began in my spirit, I said, whew, greater is he who is in me than he who is in the world. Amen. I just stopped. I said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Go-to scriptures.
My go-to scriptures. And it could be affirmations. It could be, I am confident and emotionally stable. I am in control of how I feel. That self-talk, I kid you not, I promise you, it has to be the first step. And when someone hits you, get out of the space, move, go someplace, talk to yourself. Because I can't tell you how many cases I almost caught.
I already do.
But, you know what I mean?
Well, let me tell you, sometimes that
Yeah.
thought doesn't even occur until after the storm has passed. You've lost your temper, you're in your emotions, you've engaged in the worst possible way,
Yep.
and now you have to reel it back.
That's
So
right.
whether it's before the engagement or after, you still have to bring yourself back to peace.
Right. Then resist making it bigger. We'll just go through this. Let's talk about stop real quick because we'll come back to it. So stop. This is the self-talk. that we talked about. First off, we had to surrender. Now, as a person of faith, just someone who is wanting to be better emotionally and spiritually, I knew that if all things are working together for my good, why would I be pissed off? I mean, if you really think about that. If all things work together for my good, why am I upset? That means there's a lesson I'm supposed to get out of this. There's something I'm supposed to glean, right? And so I had to learn how to surrender. And then I had to have a conversation, tell God what's happening. Guess what? He's not surprised. He's not surprised by what's just going on.
He set you up, of course not.
So it is a absolutely, it's a conversation that you're having because you're almost putting yourself in a meditative state in your self-talk, saying, Lord, this is not working. This ain't right. This is not justified, and I have every right to be angry.
That's right.
And then I turned this around and I said, you know what? But I'm still going to praise you. I'm still going to see that your hand is in this. I'm still seeing that you want me to be my absolute best. Because it may not make any sense. Why would this person abuse me? Didn't they see this young child? Didn't they see this innocence? But the thing is that is on them. I'm not going to let it destroy me. I'm not going to let it destroy my future. I'm not going to let it destroy who I plan to be. And that's why I can praise. And that's why it's a practice. These aren't automatic. When someone hurts you, what do you want to do?
Attack.
You're ready to knuckle up. How long is that going to work for you?
Has it worked?
Or do you find yourself cycling over the same stuff over and over again?
Don't forget prepare.
And then prepare to get yourself ready for the next thing.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Because it's coming.
It's coming.
Because it doesn't mean it's going to stop,
God
right?
said, God, listen to me. My mom told me one good thing about life, and it's the truth, that the devil is repetitive.
That's right. Not only is he
He goes
repetitive,
before
he
works.
studies you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So if he studies you more than you, who do you think's going to win?
Exactly. I already know.
So resist making it bigger. This was my big thing. When the memories and experiences from my past find their way into my current narrative, and we call that stacking. Think about it. Stacks, stack, and stack. We could start out in one level of argument and then find ourselves arguing about something else that happened a year ago because we never really released that thing.
Well, sweetie, I don't
Before.
find myself.
I don't. He's so silly. Because we had to
I
work
like
at
to keep
it.
it simple. Let's deal with the one issue we're having a conflict about.
But this is the,
Yeah, it's
well,
simple.
and
It's
this
simple.
is
We
why
don't
this,
have all the brain power for all the memories of all the,
but you know what I'm saying. It starts out with, you didn't wash the dishes. I'm just using a simple example. Starts out with, you didn't wash the dishes, and then next thing you know is like, this man don't love me. He don't even want to be with me no more. It just accelerates before we know it because we have triggers. Who said the thing about triggers? Exactly. Those triggers hit, and before we know it, we have zoomed all the way up this ramp of elevated emotions, out of control behavior, right? And then we're looking at everybody else saying, what's wrong with them? Sociopathic behavior, right? Trying to figure out what's wrong with them. So it is, the offense and trauma hits, the triggers are familiar, so you'll be like, oh, see, I know, that's what you do. Here we go again, right? Instead of compartmentalizing it and saying, you know what is this that's happening right here, right now, at this moment, because that's the only thing I have control in right now. You examine.
That's a great question.
Good question. She said, how do you
That's a
deal with
great
triggers?
question.
You want to answer?
Triggers. Triggers are always a result of something in your past. And that's what we're talking about today. How do we detach from the past, not in our memories because we won't forget, but how do we detach from the past in a way that allows us to learn the lessons and still not be triggered? And this is the power of forgiveness. If you're talking about a specific hurt or event, or a series of events even, that you recognize in the behavior of someone right now, You have to acknowledge it because it could be keeping you safe. But you also want to be sure not to inflict the pain from your past that activated the trigger and prevent you from having whole, healthy relationships now. If someone triggers you, like if something I did, and I saw that before, I know, and you automatically begin categorizing and passing judgment, drawing from all of those past behaviors and applying it to that person, well, that's just not fair. Because that person is an individual, and until you get to know them, you cannot know who they are or what they're capable of. And that's the risk of relationships.
Now, you always should use wisdom.
Always wisdom.
You know, wisdom is important because you want to be able to discern. But true godly discernment can't linger in the midst of anger. Okay? Your true discernment comes from a space of peace. Because otherwise, that's just you talking to yourself justifying your anger. Because God doesn't operate that way. He says, I don't even remember your transgressions for my own sake. For my own sake. Think about that. That's why it's for you. It's not about reconciliation. It's about, I can't even move forward because I'm so elevated because this person reminds me of somebody who hurt me just like this before. Right?
But the Bible also says, I'm just talking about on slides you guys were talking about
Sure.
previously, that you should know your enemy. You should learn when you deal with, learn about sociopaths and know their modus operandi, so you know when the next situation comes.
You either know how to
you
protect
can
yourself.
identify them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And extricate yourself so that you don't become a victim. And I don't think I've ever stood in a room with women like this, and I think this is just such a powerful forum for me because I learn so much. I don't get to talk to you guys very often. I don't get to interact, and I don't get to hear your thoughts in a forum like this, and I wish all men could.
Yeah.
So I consider myself fortunate to be here sharing this with you. But my point is, when I think about, because I have a mom, great mom, she's still living, a sister, aunts, sister, everything. And they've all, and I've been fortunate to have them concerned about me so that they can speak to me to teach me how to deal with women. Because I think that's a huge obstacle that most men have. We don't know how to deal with you. We haven't had any practice in how to deal with you, so that when we finally enter into a relationship with you, we rely on you to teach us at that point, which of course is too late.
Thank you.
And this
So
is
now
where,
it becomes, now the onus, like you said, the onus is on you,
Yeah.
if you love me, to try to teach me how to deal with you. And I'm only talking about it in a general sense, because the intricacies of each relationship are different. But generally, men we're not nice to you. And I think it's beginning to take center stage now with the activism,
And me too.
with the disparities, the obvious disparities in the workplace. And I've always, in the military, I saw it every day. Where men control things, they always seem to minimize women.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking about when you talk about the onus being on the victim. It's generally when the lady was speaking back earlier, and I was thinking, and I was throughout the whole thing when we were having this discussion, is that the victimization is used. I mean, they use control to control the victim constantly. That's why I'm so against all the onus being on the victim, because the victim is only micromanaged, controlled, and minimized.
And we want the victim healed.
To be healed,
So that victim
empowered,
is now able,
yeah,
empowered.
and not only empowered, but emboldened. Can you imagine when something hits you, you can stay even, and you're not going up and down and up and down? Because if you...
That's what detachment gives me.
But we do want it to, because it'll
That's a
come back.
temporary fix,
It's
though,
a
because you
temporary
have to
fix.
re-engage at some
Yeah.
point.
Working for me.
You got it, right. You say, that's my story, I'm sticking with it. I got you. But I don't know about you all, but I got tired of this.
Yeah, I don't want to be in that.
I just got tired. And I was like, gosh, if I can save women 30 years of this craziness, I mean, that to me would be worth it. We have both been in careers that we've had to deal with high-level folks, and then we've also been missions. We've done all sorts of work, and I'm telling you, there's something that's consistent. Emotional stability or emotional instability will take you down a slippery slope. I don't care who you are.
Spiritual growth demands you get through this.
Absolutely.
If you want to go higher, you have to learn this.
Yes,
You
must.
have to learn this.
If, like you said, if you want to go higher.
If you
or
want.
If you want to heal.
Right. So the next stage is agreeing to stabilize. Now, this is an absolute deliberate choice. You have gotten yourself grounded in your go-to scriptures so that you don't catch a case, right? You've resisted making it bigger, so now you've compartmentalized it and you see this thing for what it really is and not all the other past things that have led up into it. You've evaluated your emotions, because emotions are real, especially when they're raw. And you have to identify them, because if you don't, you're suppressing them, you're pushing them down, and you're not dealing with them. And they will surface. I kid you not. You could look all good on the outside, and on the inside be a hot mess and ready to explode.
Most times it did, but eventually
It'll catch up.
It will.
So this idea of stop drinking the poison, this is exactly it. It's expecting that other person to die as you are throwing darts at them, but you're the one drinking the poison.
passive aggressive.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I think I can say this to this audience. Could you imagine being held accountable for everything you did wrong?
Nope.
Could you imagine? So the grace that's been extended to you, you have to decide, you know what, I've got to extend that same grace. I mean, it's selective, it's wisdom, but you understand what I'm saying. That grace that you have been given, you've got to be able to extend that as well. And then that drives how you respond. And then, oops, sorry. And then the last two steps, expect healing. Because when you've done that, now I don't know about you, but in the morning when you wake up, how do you typically feel?
Great.
You feel great? Fantastic. Who feels heavy in the morning? How do a flood of emotions come in right at the very beginning? Right? Start your day by saying, I hold my thoughts captive to the obedience of Christ Jesus. Fill the negative thoughts with something positive. I'm telling you, you have got, because now you're in the practice of waking up with heaviness. So how are you going to change that? How are you going to dig out of that? You've got to now replace that heaviness with another thought, with another opportunity, with a different reality, with a different possibility. Just as easily as that negative thought came in, guess what? A positive thought can come in and replace it.
That doesn't seem to be automatic, though.
It's not automatic. That's why you have to choose
It's a
it.
very deliberate act.
It's very deliberate. Because guess who's studying you?
The devil. That's why the Bible says, know your enemy, though, too.
Better know him. And it's not even, sometimes I give him, we might even give him too much credit. But I think it's sometimes our own emotions and our own heaviness and the way that we're managing our own circumstances that cause us to wake up already tired. And if you're already tired when you wake up, how productive are you going to be in that day?
That's trials and tribulations.
How impactful are you going to be in that day? How divinely moved can you be in that day when all the noise is coming in right at the beginning of the day?
And how can you be a blessing? Because the thing about this whole practice that really moved me, and particularly as it relates to women, black women in particular, is you deserve to be happy. You deserve to have joy. You deserve to be healed. And that was the power of this teaching for us.
All right. So that is what we just went through at a very, very high level. But I really appreciate you all's feedback because, this is not about perfection. This is about progression. And as John was talking about how men and women interact, they know how they're showing up. We know how they're showing up. But sometimes we have to love ourselves enough to decide what we're going to stand for or not stand for. And we love them enough to help them through if they're showing willingness, right? On both sides. It really is necessary. So we're going to questions.
Well, I want to know how to get there.
Yes.
Well, when you go through that process, I'm telling you, when you get right to temper your responses.
Well, why don't you take a minute and show her what it looks like?
That's a nice picture.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So the offense hits me.
Right.
And I'm like, whew, in my anger, do not sin. It didn't say that you're not going to be angry. It just says, in my anger, do not sin. I'm giving you real talk. This is what happens to me real time. Or I'll say, let no corrupt communication come from my mouth, only that which is edifying to the building up of others according to their need. I have to get grounded in those things that bring me peace. Then I look at the situation and I'm saying, okay, is this big? Or is this something else? Is this similar to something else? Did I have a trigger in this? Or is this something fresh and new? I begin compartmentalizing it. Then I say, what emotions come out of this? You know what? I'm angry, I'm disappointed, they hurt me again. And then I think and I move into the grace of God has sustained me, and His grace is sufficient, and that all things are working together for my good. Father, what am I supposed to get out of this? Am I safe? Do I need to step out of this? Do I need to call somebody for to make sure justice is in order? But how do I ensure that I am stable? And then I temper my responses. I may not respond. I may not be in a position to respond. I may not be able to say something, and that's real. Because I'm still going back and forth between these two.
Exactly.
Okay? As much as we're trying to make it systematic, believe you me, there's iterations. You go back and forth in this practice. And then I get to a place where I say, I'm going to stabilize, and then maybe I'll say something. And then once I've said it, then I have an expectation because of my belief system. And I have to be honest with you, true forgiveness only comes with a relationship with God. You're lying to yourself if you think it's anything else, because only God can transform that emotion into something that's going to work for you rather than against you.
And it challenges us to extend the same grace.
It
Yes.
challenges us to extend the
Yes.
same grace.
This
It
keeps on
absolutely
giving.
does. Joyce Meyer had a great example. If you've ever looked at her teachings, she was molested growing up by her father, raped repeatedly, I think from like 8 to 18. And she ended up taking care of him in his later years.
Oh, Lord, He wouldn't want me to do that.
But she bought him a house. She
huge-
lived it. You know what I mean?
Huge accomplishment.
And can you imagine?
No.
The anger, and she took care of her mother, who allowed it to happen for those years.
Oh, that's another thing you never want me to do.
So imagine though the healing now that she has and the impact that she has at a global level because she decided to get out of her feelings and gift other people.
Misery the movie.
And that is what brings the peace. And I'm telling you, I can't tell you how many times I cycled through this in a day. In a day. In a moment. So that is how I do it. And that's why it's a practice. I just get closer. My barometer for success is how faster do I get to peace? Not that peace is automatic, but how faster do I get to peace? And that lets me know that I'm getting better. And believe you me, new level of spiritual development, new level, new devil. So the minute,
That's true. Yes.
right, so the minute you think you got this, right? He's like, oh, I'm studying you. You think you got this? Booyah, something else. Okay? So that's why it's a practice. That's why it has to be part of, and I have to be honest with you. So when we think about the body part of it, a year ago, I was a size 14, got 14, 16. And I just said, I'm not gonna do this anymore. I wasn't healthy. I couldn't really run with my kids the way that I wanted to. I didn't like how I was. You know, everyone else can say what they want to say, but I looked at me, and I had to forgive myself for the years of either not eating right, not taking care of myself, not making the decision to love myself enough, and I got real. And that movement of 30 pounds later, 15% body fat later reduction, just opened up an ability to just have compassion, to get past my own feelings, to feel powerful, to think and see life differently, because it was like I didn't feel like I had any limitations. And I just got real about having a life that was filled with joy. It doesn't have to be hard every day.
And I'm going to tell you, it transformed our household. It transformed our household. Our children have changed. Everything has changed because her approach to life and health has changed. And I can't even begin to describe for you what that's meant for me. You know, it was difficult to see her unhappy and not even really, and watching her not even really know why she was unhappy. Does that make sense?
I couldn't even tell why, because I was so used to just being unhappy.
Just a heaviness was on her, and there's really nothing you can do. Oh, maybe you look great today. You know, because she doesn't even like herself. You know, and those were the things. So I was always very careful to see positive affirmations and to limit my irritations and to help the children limit their irritation, because we were on a hair trigger a lot and for a long time. And it wasn't until we got this revelation, and I'm gonna spend just a few minutes. When she got this download that she's telling you about, I was asleep. I was sleeping right next to her. And I felt the movement, and I saw the light from her tablet. Kind of woke me up. I popped open one eye just to see what was happening, and she was feverishly typing something. Now I knew she was a professional, so she works in the evenings sometimes, and we've been able to minimize that now. There's balance now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I could tell this was different. This wasn't a project. This was something that she was passionate about, engaged about, and it seemed like she was activated. So I thought, well, I'm not going to bother her, because it seemed to have momentum, and I just felt like I should not interrupt. I went back to sleep. I woke up hours later, still at it. When I woke up the next morning and we started to talk about, what were you doing? She showed me the Just Breathe practice. She showed me the philosophical underlie, all the biblical references, and the things that brought this thing together for us in our household. And as we began to exercise it, our entire household changed. And then when she said, we're supposed to do this, because we can't just be sole beneficiaries and not share this, because we realize it won't be for everyone, but we know that if one person is delivered, then it will have been worth it. If you see that forgiveness is for you, it's for you. It's not for anyone else but you. And if you refuse to do it, and you reserve the right to do that, you can choose to carry your bitterness with you, or you can be free. And then you can attack the issues, not the people, the issues that created the trauma at the outset.
So we just wanted to thank you so much for coming to this session. You really have blessed us, you know.
And thank you for challenging us.
Yes, absolutely.
We need that feedback. And if there are any questions, we want to know if there are questions. We don't want to rush you out, but I know they're going to rush us out.
Yeah, the next session is coming and we got to break down. But please, the book is an Audible book. It's an ebook as well, but we've been really kind of pushing the Audible because it is, it's our voices, and we also have meditations there. So we actually have meditations at each section of that, begin in the spirit, resist making it bigger, so that you can begin that self-talk of really releasing the past and really just making a real change. Now, if you actually did this assessment, We have your email address. We're going to send you, because of your participation here, we're going to send you the first sheet of actually the examination. This is examining your triggers and putting together what we call the top 5 offender list. Who do you really need to start working some things out with? All right? So thank you so much
Thank
for coming
you.
out. We really appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thank you for your participation.
Thank you.